Welcome back. Midway through week 10, we are rolling along into our wide receiver rankings. These rankings are coming out before Thursday Night Football, so just FYI, they may come out Friday. So if you're wondering why we have certain guys in certain places and we're ranking them, it is because it is before that. But to pivot off of that, I'm with my co-host Jeremy Schulman, a.k.a. Mac Jones lives. How you doing, Jeremy?
Yeah, the Mac, as a Pats fan, the Mac Jones pain runs deep. I have Mac Jones PTSD so much so that I don't want to crown Drake May, even though he looks great. Let's just hope he's the guy for the future. Trevor Lawrence may have season-ending surgery. That's what that's in reference to. If so, it's the Mac Jones show in Jacksonville, which, who really cares? Except Mac Jones is now my most owned dynasty player because I picked him up everywhere, which is just a sad state of affair for fantasy football in 2024.
Yeah, it's a good time. I've seen Mac Jones being pulled up in a ton of leagues, a lot of dynasty leagues, a lot of best balls. Everyone's like, "Ooh, gonna go grab Mac Jones," and I'm like,
"Yeah,
best of luck, my friends. It's going to be ugly in Jacksonville." I put out a tweet. I was like, we're gonna lower the entire offense. So who knows? Hopefully he can get our boy BTJ the ball because we would like that. But it's Mac Jones. Life is gonna be treacherous back there. Yeah, we're gonna jump into these wide receiver rankings. So these are the consensus rankings between myself and Jeremy. That the 2 of the 4 at the FFU. We would like the other guys to join us at some point. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But so far, just me and Jeremy. So we're going to jump into our tier 1 wide receivers, the big dogs, wide receivers 1 through wide receiver 6. You can find these rankings on our website, fantasyfootballuniverse.com. Go to rankings, consensus. They will be there right there for you. So, our first 6 wide receivers, we have Justin Jefferson against Jacksonville. Good luck, Jacksonville. You are going to get crushed by Justin Jefferson. Wide receiver 2 is Jamar Chase against Baltimore. Wide receiver 3 is Amon-Ra St. Brown going against Houston. Wide receiver 4, which might be a little spicy, is Cooper Kupp going against Miami. Wide receiver 5, Malik Neighbors, back in our life because they're playing Carolina Panthers. And wide receiver 6, Tyreek Hill, going up against the Los Angeles Rams. How you feeling about these top 6 guys, Jeremy?
I absolutely love them. Malik Neighbors at Carolina. This guy is an absolute stud. He should feast, except for the fact that I have him ranked slightly lower than you this week, just because I don't trust that offense at all. Mm-hmm. This could very well be the Tyrone Tracy show. It should probably be the Tyrone Tracy show, but Malik Neighbors can get there. Carolina's doing absolutely nothing on the defensive side of the ball. Love him this week that he's in. He's my 7th guy, but I love that he made it into the top 6 here. Yeah, love Malik Neighbors. And Cooper Kupp, we have him flipped, so I'm 7, you're 4 on Neighbors. I'm 4 and you're 7 on Cooper Kupp at Miami. He's probably going to get the Jalen Ramsey. Hey, I remembered his name right off the bat. The Jalen Ramsey treatment in this one. I don't care. Cooper Kupp is a monster. They move him all over the field. Puka Nacua is back, most likely. Probably won't get ejected in this one for taking a swing at Ramsey or whoever is covering him. But yeah, I really like those 2 guys, especially. I think they're going to eat. And those are 2 names that, surprisingly to me, made it all the way up into the top 6.
Yeah, it's interesting. Particularly with Malik Neighbors, ever since he's come back from the injury in the bye, he's the least amount of targets he's seen in 8. So it's 8, 13, and 11. Targets are good. The yards just haven't fully been there. The highest he's had is 71 against Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. The thing about Carolina's defense and why I'm so bullish on them is they just can't cover. They can't stop anyone. So
nothing.
It really comes down to a trust in Daniel Jones. And if you listen to our quarterback tight end show, we had Daniel Jones as top 10 quarterback. So if that's the case, we're very much buying into the Giants offense as a whole. Buying into the Carolina offense, it's going to be wild. This is a wild week where it's reverse. Buy into the bad teams, fade the good. We'll see how it goes. The rest of the guys, you just like them all. You know what it is. Justin Jefferson against single high coverage. Good luck. Jacksonville with single. You guys are going to get good. We shall see how that works. But the other guys, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you know what he is. A super high floor. His target share is back above 30%. He's doing everything for you. Let's jump into our tier 2 wide receivers, where it gets a little bit more interesting there. These are wide receiver 7 through wide receiver 12. You'll see the first guy is Garrett Wilson going against the Arizona Cardinals, and that Arizona Cardinals defense did have a good game last week, but they have struggled. And let's be real, Garrett Wilson's better than pretty much anybody they've seen this season. He should have a very good game. Next up, Puka Nacua, wide receiver 8 going against Miami. So you can tell we were very much in on the Rams offense and the Miami Dolphins offense because we have 3 guys in the top 8 in this game. The next guy, Mr. himself, Deebo Samuel, going against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, which is atrocious against wide receivers, It is bad news bears. They're giving up over 30 points per game to wide receivers. It's top 6. And Debo gets a little bit of rushing boost. We'll see with CMC how he comes back. But if you have Debo, you should be fine. Go up no matter what. A wide receiver 10, even though he's a little bit questionable, it's A.J. Brown going up against the depleted Dallas Cowboys defense, which I don't know how they're going to stop him. I'm expecting Philly just an onslaught offensively. He should get his problem, even if it's like a first half game. Doesn't even matter, right? The next guy, Zay Flowers, might seem a little bit spicy until you realize Cincinnati plays a ton of single high coverage, and Zay Flowers is one of the highest yards per route run against that. So Thursday night football game, Zay Flowers, we're expecting him to go off if you haven't started him. And the last guy in this tier, the second Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, the Robin to A.J. Brown's Batman, Mr. Devonta Smith. Good luck, Cowboys, is all I'm going to say. How are you feeling about these guys? Is there anyone in particular you're a little bit more bullish or a little bit lower on in this group?
No, I love the Eagles. Both of those pass catchers. It's Dallas. You know they're going to turn it on. There's no way that they are going to take their foot off the gas pedal in this one. So love both of those guys in their rankings in the top 12. Debo is going to eat at Tampa. You mentioned it. But let's talk about Garrett Wilson. Damn near double-digit targets every single time he walks out there. There's only been one game with 6 targets. That was back in week 2. Otherwise, his floor of targets has been 8. Ceiling's been 23. That was before Devonta Adams showed up. So he's getting consistently about 8 to 10 targets per game over the last month. And he's just absolutely converting that into magic. We saw his reverse Jordan reception where he got the one shin down, which would be the talk of the week if not for Saquon Barkley reverse hurdling someone, which is insane. But yeah, Garrett Wilson is the guy. I don't care about Devonta Adams. I think they both coexist. And I think when one of them goes off, it's more often than not going to be Garrett Wilson. He's just too talented at this stage in his career. He's always open. And, once Breece Hall gets a little more consistently productive with all 3 of these guys, I think it could come at the expense of Adams or Hall weekly. I think Garrett Wilson is going to get his, even if he doesn't score a touchdown the last couple of weeks. This is week 7, didn't score, wide receiver 20. Week 8 didn't score, wide receiver 23. That's half PPR. The yards are there. The targets are there. He's scored in half his games. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's great. And the interesting thing about that offense is last week against Houston, they had 65% of the targets, 85% of the receiving yards. Those 2 guys had it on the team. It's going to be like that the majority. It'll probably come down a little bit because we're expecting Breece Hall to come back to life a little bit, the targets and all those things in nature. But yeah, both these guys are really high floor plays. I mean, we saw Garrett Wilson doing his Jordan impression, making the touchdowns. That's how he hits the high ceiling. So Arizona is an interesting defense, but they're not going to be able to cover those guys. So it should be a lot of fun. Let's jump into tier 3. This is our wide receivers 13 through 18. And as I can fumble through the rankings, there we are. All right. The first guy up, dealing with a little bit of hit pointer. It's Drake London going up against the Saints. Depleted defense. There's no more Marshawn Lattimore there anymore. Good luck. He's just going to dominate the middle of the field against the Saints defense. The next guy, George Pickens, going up against the Washington defense, which is also another juicy matchup. I wish the Washington Commander defense, they got Marshawn Lattimore, the team that traded for him. I don't know how involved he's going to be in this game. We will see.
He may not play.
Yeah, so that's the problem, right? So if he doesn't play, it's tough. You want him to play because they need somebody to guard Pickens, but we don't think it's going to happen. Our wide receiver 15, Tank Dell. The Lions defense just sucks. They give up a ton of yards, ton of receptions. We have both him and Nico tops 15. So yeah, we love the pass catchers in this game. The wide receiver 16, Darnell Mooney. I guess you're getting a consensus ranking of we like guys in good matchups. This is Tank Dell. He's the second wide receiver there. Darnell Mooney is the second wide receiver for the Falcons. We like that guy going against those teams. Wide receiver 17, probably the lowest we'll have him ranked because he's dealing with an injury. He has no quarterback. It's CeeDee Lamb going up against the Eagles. We're kind of waiting to see with him. If he is fully healthy and he does get if he's going to play, I'm going to bump him up a little bit, but we just kind of knock him just because of the injury and things of that nature. And the last guy on this tier is Terry McLaurin going up against the Steelers, wide receiver 18. So how do you feel about these tier 3 guys, Jeremy?
Yeah, love F1 just in a tougher matchup than usual, but I think he'll be just fine. Got to talk about my guy, Darnell Mooney. We've talked all about Darnell Mooney, but if Drake London does not play in this game, Darnell Mooney is going to eat. New Orleans just sent away their best cover guy. Their secondary has been atrocious, even with Marshawn Lattimore all year. They have injuries all over the place. It's so ugly. fire up your Falcons this week. That includes Darnell Mooney. We talked about it earlier in the week. You mentioned it. He's a top 12. He's a wide receiver 12 by fantasy points per game, or sorry, total fantasy points in PPR leagues. He's a monster. So Darnell Mooney is just going to eat. Can't wait for Mooney. And obviously we have Drake London that high. If London plays, you fire him up.
Yes, like you want to fire both of these guys up, but like Matt Harmon had a post about this today. He's like, Atlanta figured out the perfect way to play Mooney and like accentuate his strengths and what it is. They're using him kind of like a little bit deeper. They're doing a lot of crossers, a lot of nines, a lot of outs, things of that nature. And it's working really well for him. And it's also pairing really well with Drake London does because Drake London's a little bit more underneath. So those two are like a nice 1-2 punch. And you have Kirk Cousins, who we've seen over the course of time. Kirk Cousins support wide receiver ones, similar to what Aaron Rodgers does. So if you have Mooney, like that was one of the better like value picks you could have made all season. He's been great. Oh, yeah. We're expecting to continue. It's like to your point, especially if there's no Drake London. If there's no Drake London, it's like, all right, Mooney's gonna have 15 targets. It's gonna be glorious.
Yeah, to the moon.
Let's go to our tier 4. We start getting into the back end of the wide receiver 2s. Our wide receivers 19 through wide receiver 24. Starting off this, we have the second guy for the Jets, Devontae Adams, who is playing the Arizona Cardinals. You know what you're gonna get. The next guy, a wide receiver 20, Brian Thomas Jr. is probably the most interesting because we might get Mac Jones, and that's not sounding too great against the Minnesota Vikings defense, but Brian Thomas Jr. is just so good. It's really hard to fade him at a point because he can just carry it, right? The next guy, wide receiver 21, DeAndre Hopkins, had a really good game last week. He gets Denver Broncos defense, which is pretty good defense. Now they got eviscerated by Baltimore, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how successful he can be in this matchup. So we're kind of like on the fence with Hopkins. We like him, but we're not super bullish on him. It's just a tough matchup. Our wide receiver 22 is Calvin Ridley. He is the only option in that passing attack, going up against another tough matchup against the Chargers defense, who is a tough one to beat. Our wide receiver 23 is Khalil Shakir, going up against the Indianapolis Colts defense. That defense can be had. Khalil Shakir is our first Buffalo Bills wide receiver. He should have a game. And the last guy, Marvin Harrison Jr., going up against the Jets defense, which has been stingy. He rounds out our top 24. How are you feeling about these tier 4 wide receivers, Jeremy?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how Kansas City deploys DeAndre Hopkins against a really good pass defense. Hopkins absolutely went off last week. It was really, really nice to see. Hopkins is the same old DeAndre Hopkins, and sometimes it just takes an all-world, all-class quarterback throwing you the football to kind of show out and show what you can do. I was looking to see if Rashee Rice played Denver. They have not. This is their first matchup against Denver this season. Kansas City is. So, DeAndre Hopkins is kind of like Rashee Rice light in terms of his usage. They're moving him around. He's playing some slot. I'll be interested to see what happens with how Denver decides to do it, whether it's Surtain covering Hopkins and shadowing completely, whether McMillan covers him, if he goes into the slot, how Kelsey is used here. This defense is a very good pass defense. And Vegas, and who did they play last week? The Chiefs, remind me. Was it
they played
Chargers? Oh, the Bucks. Yeah. So Vegas and the Bucks over the last two. These defenses are horrible. So now they face a really good defense. Denver's been pretty good most of the season on D. So it'll be interesting to see what DeAndre does. We think he's going to have a good game. That said, he's still kind of a back end wide receiver 2 for us.
Yeah, and like he didn't really play a ton of slot in this game either, because I know they talked about it with head coach Andy Reid, but that's not really what they did. So they more had him like go outside in, working outside in breakers, do a lot of intermediate stuff. I think that could be good for them, but yeah, if he gets Patrick Surtain, it's not the best thing in the world because Hopkins isn't really creating a ton of separation. It's just like small windows. He just, he's the contested catch. He uses all that ability. So I'm curious to see how that works out. It was just lowering him this week. This is kind of the range he's going to be in because he still only had 8 targets last week. We'll see how that continues. And also this comes in the issue with Mahomes, that offense. And for some reason, they just love featuring Kareem Hunt. So until that changes, we'll see what those guys do. Next up, our tier 5 wide receivers. It gets a little bit more difficult in this range. We're starting out with Josh Downs going up against the Buffalo Bills defense. He's rounding that out. The next guy, Ladd McConkey, someone we really, really like. The issue is this matchup is very tough for him. Tennessee is tough against the slot. They're tough against the outside. So we're just betting on the talent of Ladd McConkey to beat the Tennessee Titans defense. The next guy, Juwan Jennings, going up against Tampa Bay in what we already know is a very juicy matchup. If he's healthy and he goes, like, I'm firing him up. I'm probably going to push him in the top 20. I think he's just been a really good wide receiver. And this is a juicy matchup. We saw Hopkins do it last week. So, yeah, I would fire him up. Yeah. Our wide receiver 28, Jalen Waddle, the guy who has been just one of the more disappointing wide receivers in football this year as far as an output of fantasy production. just kind of is what it is. So I might need to knock him down a little bit, but he falls kind of in this range. We're about 8 spots apart on these two guys, but overall, like we're not super bullish on Jalen Waddle just because that's how the offense is running. The good thing is the Rams defense is just not that good at stopping teams, even though the last month or so they've come on. We'll see how that works out. Our next guy, our wide receiver 29, is Cortland Sutton going up against a tough matchup against Kansas City Chiefs defense. We'll see if he can get there. He's probably gonna have to make a big play or a contested catch or a touchdown. That's kind of what we're expecting from Sutton. Yep. And the last guy in this matchup is DJ Moore, and he has been very up or down as well. He's a wide receiver 30 going against the New England Patriots. If you saw him last week, he just stepped out on a play where they were showing the highlights of Gronk, and Gronk was like, "What is he doing?" Yeah, I mean, he's dealing with an injury and stuff, but it just shows you the issues going on with that Chicago Bears offense. Where are you kind of at with this group of players? Is there anyone in particular you like the most, or is it kind of like all guys are just kind of man?
Yeah, it's a bunch of guys I'm mad on. Let's talk about a few of them. First of all, Lab McConkey. Just check out in Tennessee, L'Jarius Sneed didn't play last week. He's not practicing again. It's Wednesday. That's a typical rest day. We'll have to see what he does here on Thursday if he gets into practice. But if he's not playing, obviously it affects the entire defense. And then if, like you said, the slot coverage there, they're going to have to shift some things around and figure things out if L'Jarius can't lock down the outside. The other thing to consider is Jalen Waddle. I have him higher than most, but for me, this is the final week. Like if he can't get it done against the Rams, I get it. He's like 5th in the pecking order at this point, behind Jonnu Smith somehow. But if Jalen Waddle can't get it done in this matchup, then I'm just going to fade him to oblivion the rest of the season. I'm not really starting him, even though I have him at, let's see, my true rankings here. Jalen Waddle is my wide receiver 28 on the week. It's a nice matchup against the Rams. But if he just can't break something off or earn 6 targets in this game, I'm just going to have to fade him from here on out and just like concede that Jonnu Smith is the preferred option. Tyreek isn't even doing it. So it's just Achane and really no one else at the moment. But then the guy we should talk about here is DJ Moore. He's our consensus 39 targets last week against a beatable Arizona team, 4 for 33. Like you said, he walked off the field. He claimed injury. I read a tweet earlier that apparently the very next play he ran a go route. So, how injured was DJ Moore, or is he just trying to kind of push this behind him? Who knows? Maybe he thought Caleb stepped out, like legit. Like DJ Moore does not seem like that type of guy, but you can't rule anything out when you're talking about the Bears organization. This coaching staff has lost it. I mean, I think they're probably out the door by the end of the season. There's really little that they can, Eberflus and company can probably do. Shane Waldron needs to go yesterday.
Yes.
Our feelings about Shane Waldron. But over the last month, after his week 5 wide receiver 4 performance, this is DJ Moore. He's been the wide receiver 70 in half PPR. He had a bye. Then out of the bye, wide receiver 69 and wide receiver 55. He's been terrible. So DJ Moore, I can't start him until further notice, and he's probably going to get Christian Gonzalez.
That's the trifecta of bad going on in the Bears offense. Like, what's interesting is they're featuring freaking Keenan Allen, and this is the thing that just doesn't make sense. He's getting a lot of first read looks, as opposed to someone who's actually good, who's been good, like Juwan Jennings is getting a lot of first read looks for a good reason. Keenan Allen is just getting schemed these just god awful touches with no yak, and it's like, it's super inefficient. You need to move away from that from Shane Waldron, but he's got a kink for just doing weird stuff where he lines people up in weird formation. He'll do speed options on 4th and goal. Like, I'm like, bro, can we just like tone this down? Find your guys, get them the ball. Give it to Romo Jinsei, give it to DJ Moore, give it to DeAndre Swift, and hey, maybe give some Cole Kmet some more. So we'll see how that goes for him. It's not going well in Chicago. If they struggle in this game and if they potentially lose this game, we could see them just heads rolling in Chicago based off of this because they desperately need to win this game, man. It's just time. It's not going well there. Juwan Jennings or Lamb Conker are probably 2 guys I like the most. DJ Moore's probably the guy I like the least this year, which sucks.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's go to tier 6. Still a good group of wide receivers. There's a massive difference in how we're ranking Nico Collins because you're expecting him to be out. I'm expecting him to play.
Yep.
I have him at wide receiver 3. You have him at 57 because of the injury. Obviously, he's going to come on up, right? But this is where
I moved him to 13, so it's not reflected in the consensus rankings. If he plays, he slots in at 13 for me this week. I don't think he's playing. In fact, something just came out. I'm looking for it at the moment, but he's not practicing today on a Thursday, and they have not yet removed him off of IR. So it is a concern that
Definitely.
Nico may not be ready for this week. If that's the case, CJ Stroud kind of stays where I have him ranked criminally low, for one more week. But if Nico doesn't come back this week, he'll be back next week.
Yeah, well, I'll just bump up, take a few spots if that's the case. And yeah, you have to know this. Like, you have to pay attention to the reports with Nico because we're hoping he comes back, but we don't know. So this is the biggest concern.
Yeah.
But if he suits up against this Detroit defense, giving him the most receptions, most yards in the NFL, like, I'm firing him the hell up. I don't even care.
Oh yeah,
I'll live with the injury risk of it. Is what it is. Our next guy, our wide receiver 32, Jordan. Let me try that again. Jordan Addison, wide receiver 32, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Very beatable Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Addison gets really good looks. He doesn't get the number one corner. Like, he gets a lot of off coverage. It should be a good game for him against Jacksonville. Next guy, back in our life, coming off suspension, Jameson Williams, wide receiver 33, going up against the Houston defense. And I feel like I kind of want to bump him up this week because I feel like they're going to integrate him into the offense a little bit more. So be like, all right, Jameson, like, let's see what you got. Let's go for it. Make a couple big plays and see how that goes. Our wide receiver 34, Rome Odunze. And I'm almost at the point where I'm probably going to flip Odunze and DJ Moore in this offense and just see how it goes and bet on the talent. That seems like where it's going. So by the end of the week, I will have Rome Odunze above DJ Moore and just, I'm a Rome guy. It is what it is. Our wide receiver 35, Amari Cooper, dealing with an injury. He's kind of in this range where it's hard to trust him at the moment. It's kind of all the wide receivers in Buffalo. Like, there's a lot of good things to like, but there's still question marks. This is why Amari Cooper falls in the top 35. He's there. You could play him, but there still are question marks about him in that offense, and it fully clicked him, right? And the last guy, rounding out this tier, Xavier Legette, going up against the Giants. He's our wide receiver 36, and pretty good matchup, and he's been good so far. Like, the last few weeks, he's got a couple touchdowns. So overall, it looks pretty good. In this tier, who are you kind of high on and who are you kind of low on?
Yeah, you mentioned Amari, just to point out that they're playing as a reminder, they're playing the Colts. I mean, it's just so juicy. So if he plays, will he get a full allotment of slaps? What's that going to look like? Like you said, is he fully integrated yet? So it's just kind of, tempering expectations for him. But if he plays, he's probably going to be in my lineups this week with such a good matchup. Rome Odunze, like you said, I like the fact that he probably won't see Christian Gonzalez. I don't know if that's the case. We'll have to see what New England does. But Rome went off last week. He has this potential, and I agree with you. I'm probably enjoying Rome more than DJ Moore right now at this point. This is where rookies turn it on in the second half of the year. I'm going to give it one more week before I make that switch. But yeah, Rome is a nice play. And then Jordan Addison, do not sleep on Sam Darnold getting the football to all his boys. He's our consensus QB7 this week. He's got an amazing matchup. It's Jacksonville. He's going to be slinging it all over the yard. Everyone goes crazy in this game, maybe even TJ Hawkinson. So go ahead and fire up all your Minnesota Vikings this week.
Yeah, it's interesting with Amari Cooper in particular. Supposedly Keon Coleman did not practice today. So we'll see if he goes. And with Amari Cooper, he's kind of going through the motions, but he was not fully as involved in other guys. So it's another situation similar to Nico Collins. We need to watch it with Amari Cooper and make sure he plays. But if he plays, then we'll see. If Keon Coleman does miss this week, which he could, it'll be interesting. Like, we're just going to be really high on Khalil Shakir. I think how it rounds out because he's going to focus on that offense.
Oh, yeah.
And he's one of the better guys in the NFL. So, it could work out really well for him. Let's go to our tier 7 wide receivers. We're starting to get into the weeds a little bit. These are wide receivers 37 through 42. The guy that I really like in this tier is Mr. Ricky Pearsall, the rookie from San Francisco. He's getting his sea legs under him. It is taking a while. By the way, while I really like him, it's Tampa Bay defense. They can be had. They've been had all year. I expect him to do really well. I actually like both of those wide receivers in this matchup, him and Jawan Jennings. Wide receiver 38, Quentin Johnston, just cracking the top 40 for us. The Tennessee defense is a tough matchup for him. I don't know if they're necessarily going to see what we saw last week with blown coverage play, but it could work out for him where he still does some good things for you because he's a supposed to play guy. That's life he lives. The next guy, the second Giants wide receiver ahead of Wan'Dale Robinson, it's Darius Slayton. He's wide receiver 39. He has more taken on the role of the wide receiver 2 in that offense. We're expecting that to kind of stick. It's Carolina Panthers, man. I would not be shocked to see Darius Slayton hit a couple boom plays here where he has like a 50-yard catch, maybe a touchdown. He does some good things for you, right? The next guy who's been incredibly disappointing this season, it's Michael Pittman. He's inside our top 40. It is really hard to have confidence with Pittman. You're kind of forcing yourself with the rankings here. And it's like, I don't feel great about it, but like you get to this range of wide receivers and you're like, okay, I get it. Like you can talk yourself into Pittman, right? It's just the injury just seems like it's killing him. The next guy in this tier, Demarcus Robinson, wide receiver 41. I particularly really like him as a third option. As long as Puka and as long as Kupp are on the field, it gives Robinson a lot of good advantages. And we saw last week, he was like the wide receiver 4. Like, he can do really good things and be that explosive element for that offense. The last guy rounding out this tier is Jalen Coker, a wide receiver 42. We're kind of trusting back. They did the Mingo thing last year. I think it was more of a showcase for Mingo. Then they traded him away. Somehow they got a 4th-round pick for Mingo. Congrats on that, Carolina. I don't know how you did that. But if Jalen Coker, yeah, if he gets those slot snaps again, that's what we're hoping for. Should be a good game from him. So how are you feeling about these guys in this tier 7 of wide receivers?
Yeah, I like almost all of these guys in this tier. You mentioned Ricky Pearsall. I think he's a sneaky play just after the bye. Gets kind of 2 weeks to get ready for this matchup, which, like you said, is cake going against Tampa Bay. Even though they're in Tampa Bay, it's going to be very easy, assuming the weather isn't crazy, which it hasn't totally been, I don't think, in Tampa yet. As long as they don't have a crazy thunderstorm, they're going to be just fine. Ricky Pearsall is, I think Purdy's going to go off in this game. I think Pearsall is a nice flex option. The guy I really want to talk about is Demarcus Robinson. He's heating up 2 games in a row with 2 touchdowns. He's about to be on fire because Miami is going to be so hyper focused on Cooper Kupp, on Puka Nacua, that Demarcus Robinson is going to get let loose. And I'm calling it. He's scoring another touchdown in this one. Bet the over on the 0.5 Demarcus Robinson touchdowns this week.
Yes.
I think this is going to be a shootout. This may be the most fun game of the weekend. This could be easily both of these teams scoring 40 points. I just think Demarcus Robinson left alone against anyone that's not Jalen Ramsey, he's absolutely going to eat in this offense because, who are you going to double? Who are you going to double? Cooper Kupp? Probably. Some plays you're going to double, Puka? Probably. You got to look out for Kyron Williams, so you can't sit back. You got to stack the box some plays. Demarcus Robinson is just the guy who runs around, and he's proven he can beat single coverage.
Yep. Yeah, I really like him. If you remember last year from week 13 on, even with his bagel in week 18, he was still the wide receiver 31 on a points per game basis. He has done this before. He came on. This is the exact same thing as last year. We're seeing second half of the season. With those guys healthy, and what it does, it just helps out the entire offense. The efficiency increases, makes his life a hell of a lot easier because you're not focusing on him. The type of wide receiver who can excel is the wide receiver 3, not the guy you can depend on the offense as the wide receiver 1. So he gets this situation. He can make some big plays for you. And that's why we really like him. I think it's a good matchup. Both the Rams and the 49ers matchups are 50-plus point games projected. So, yeah, we're liking all of this. You should play all these guys.
Jesse, and he may be going up against Storm Duck on Miami. All the more reason to fire up Demarcus Robinson against rookie sensation Storm Duck in the secondary.
What a name. That sounds like a made-up name. That's an auto-generated creative player on Madden. I've never heard this guy in my life, but that's a fantastic name.
I love it.
Yeah. Let's go to our 8th and final tier before we kind of get to the best of the rest. These are wide receivers 43 through 48. We're starting out here with Demario Douglas. He's, as long as Drake May plays, which is the expectation is he's going to play, Demario Douglas sees an increase in production and usage, and it should work out for him this week against the Chicago defense, which has been really good, but I think he can still see enough targets to be valuable for you. The next guy, Xavier Worthy. We are still waiting on you, man. You had your chance last week. Let's hope it works out. Problem is you got a tough match against Denver, so you're going to need to take the top off. I don't know if he can. Or wide receiver 45, Deontay Johnson. I just have no idea what his role is going to be. It's a good matchup against the depleted Cincinnati defense. We just have no idea where this is going to go. So this is more a wait-and-see rankings because I like Deontay. I think he's a talented player, but if he's the 3rd or 4th wide receiver in this attack, you just can't count on him, unfortunately. The next guy who we talked about a little bit earlier, Keenan Allen, wide receiver 46. I don't really want to play Keenan Allen, but you kind of slot him in the ranking because you know his role and usage. It just needs increased efficiency. Wide receiver 47, Noah Brown, the Washington number 2 wide receiver. We actually like him this week. Going against Pittsburgh, I think he can do what he did last week. He can make some big plays for you and be a difference maker. The last guy in this tier is the 3rd Baltimore wide receiver, Rashad Bateman. You can kind of tell we don't know how these two are going to slot out this week. That's why they're in this range. But yeah, it's the Cincinnati Bengals defense, and it has gotten a little bit better, but Lamar on this offense, they just create chunk plays. They do a lot of good stuff. So overall, this tier rounds out into a decent amount of players. How are you kind of feeling about these tier 8 players? Is there anybody you are desperately wanting to play, or you kind of want to TBD see it out with this group?
Yeah, Noah Brown's interesting. Bateman is probably interesting on the short week. unlikely to have Deontay fully integrated into that offense yet, but there's just no way to know. So I'm steering clear of most of these guys, especially Xavier Worthy. Over the last month, 6, 8, and 8 targets until DeAndre Hopkins happened. 2 targets last week, no catches, 2 rushes. They're trying to get the ball in his hands. Great. Negative 10 yards on the rush. He was the wide receiver 111 with negative 1 point scored in fantasy last week. And so, and that's against Tampa, the matchup that we keep saying, like, this is the matchup you want. Now they're just going to flip the script and play against Denver. Sheesh, no, should Xavier Worthy be the deep threat in this offense and, stretch the field? Yes. But that was Justin Watson last week. So I just don't really know what the hell Kansas City is doing with their rookie wide receiver, whether they think he's just not ready, just not good enough, or what's going on. But they went out and they got 2 wide receivers. So first of all, they drafted Worthy, right? Before that, they went out and got Hollywood Brown, injured. They went out and got Juju mid-season, injured. They went out and got Hopkins. So they're just trying to figure it out. But one thing seems clear. It's probably not going to be Worthy. So I am benching him until further notice.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. I think he's the traditional veteran best ball guy until we see more from him.
Yeah.
It's just like some rookies, it takes a little time to develop. I think it's just taking Worthy a little bit more time than people expected because he was a consistent producer, but never a truly high-end producer in college. So people kind of maybe got out of their skis because he's playing for this team. But you see DeAndre Hopkins, he comes in, he's a professional NFL wide receiver. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame. Like, you know what you have with him. We're hoping like it frees up Worthy, but yeah, in this Denver matchup, I don't really want to play him. I would much rather prefer to go the DeMario Douglas route.
Yeah,
he's been up or down with Drake May. He's had a couple good weeks, a couple down weeks. It's just his snap percentage has been all over the board. So if he's getting 70% of snaps, he's going to be involved. If it's like 2 weeks ago with Jacksonville, he only played 30% of snaps. So we want those snaps to come up so we can consistently trust him. Let's go to kind of our tier 9 and basically the best of the rest. Outside the 48 wide receivers, is there anyone in particular that stands out to you that you can make the case to start this week?
Yeah, there's a couple guys. Let's start with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine in Tennessee. We just talked about DeAndre Hopkins kind of making life hell for Xavier Worthy, but his departure from Tennessee makes Nick Westbrook-Ikhine a 100% snap player. The last 2 weeks, 92 and 97% of snaps. He's out there all the time and seeing 4 and 6 targets over his last 3, scoring 4 touchdowns in his last 4 games, 1 in each game. So 4 games in a row where he's gotten into the end zone. He's an end zone threat. They're playing the Chargers. They're going to need something to happen. Ridley is a decent play. I think Westbrook-Ikhine is a decent play as a flex. And the other guy I want to highlight here is Parker Washington. Gabe Davis is still a maybe. But yeah, we don't know if this guy is going to be making an appearance or if Trevor Lawrence is going to gut it out, which he shouldn't on a 2-7 team. Right. But yeah, Parker Washington will be interesting anyway. It's possible that maybe early on in camp, because he was buried on the depth chart, that he has a rapport with Mac Jones. So that'll be interesting to see how that develops. And I would flex him regardless if I need help this week. Also, Yoshavas tonight is interesting if T. Higgins doesn't play.
Yeah, that's kind of the kicker, right? Like, we're not expecting T. Higgins to play. This is going to go up until game time, so we won't know until a couple hours from now. But yeah, I think you can make the case if you're desperate, you want to go the Yoshavas route. It's been kind of up or down, but there's sparks where you could see it. And in this Ravens game with a projected total like 54 points, like, you kind of want all the options in this game because you know there's going to be a lot of points for everyone to have. The one guy also in this group is, I think, Jalen McMillan is interesting. He missed last week due to an injury. If he's healthy and playing, I'm expecting him to be the focal, like, wide receiver 1 of that offense. It's not going to be high end production, but like, it's a game where, like, we talk about Purdy and that offense is going to go off. Baker has been incredible this year. I still expect him to have a really good game. I think you could talk yourself into Jalen McMillan and flexing him. Or if you want to do the Sterling Shepard thing, Shepard was okay last week. You could pick whichever wide receiver you trust more and go that route. But and yeah, that's our top 50 plus wide receivers this week in week 10. Overall, we're hoping these guys, they go right by us and they make the good play, and it wins you the week. So this episode is going to drop probably Friday. And then, yeah, we'll get into the round table discussion on Saturday. And then that'll kickstart into our sit-starts discussion on Sunday. So we got a lot of stuff coming up the rest of this week and through the end of the season. So yeah, stick with us. If you have already stayed this long, thank you for staying to the end of the show. Like, that is awesome. We appreciate that. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. All of that is very important to us, and we appreciate all the support we get from you guys. So for myself, for Jeremy, for SC, and Aaron, thank you for joining us in the Week 10 wide receiver rankings, and we will see you later on this week, folks. Listen up, closely, let the
news every week.